Welcome, everybody. I'm Dr. David Rosensweet. We're on I Wonder Doctor Live. So, to all of you around the world and all the ships at sea, call in your questions today because this is the time I love to devote to speaking with you personally and answering your questions. And we also receive several questions through your emails, and so I'll also be addressing those as well. And the number to call in is 888 502 8886. That's 888-502-8886. And I'd like to begin this with talking to you about what the fight or flight biological response causes in us as far as our health goes. Because, all causes to all illnesses have a story behind them, and it boils down to tuning up our nutrition, tuning up our exercise, doing any detoxification we need to do. And the elephant in so many people's lives and rooms is how we respond to stress. If we respond to stress in a reaction way, and we do what we would do if a saber-toothed tiger jumped into the room at us, we would fight or flee, right? That's what we would do. Well, there is such a powerful biology that kicks in. I mean, there's so many chemicals and physiological processes that take place to fight that saber-toothed tiger or run from it. And they start with the vanguard of these powerful hormones, these biochemicals that have given mothers, for example, so much strength they're able to lift cars off of children that are entrapped underneath them. Or we can fight or flee from the saber-toothed tiger. Well, there's a lot of biochemicals that come into play, and they're not designed primarily for fight or flight. They're designed for daily function. So one of the ways that repetitive, overreactive response to the stress in our life is we start diminishing the amount of these hormones and biochemicals that are there to nurture and support us in day-to-day life, in walking, talking, thinking, feeling vital and alive. And that's what happens to so many people, is that over the course of time, you get diminished adrenal hormones. That's why you might have heard the word adrenal fatigue. You get diminished thyroid hormones. You get diminished ovarian and testicular hormones. These hormones are so powerful and are so important for daily function that as these start to diminish, lots of things happen to energy. So people get diminished energy. So as people quote age, it's not really natural aging. As they quote age, they get diminished hormones and thus diminished energy, vitality. They don't sleep as well. That really interferes with energy. They don't think as clearly. Their mood isn't as good. I mean, the depletion of these hormones by over-recruiting for an excessive response to the stresses in our lives, it takes its long-term toll. That's one of them. The other thing about these biochemicals is, my goodness, they mobilize us for fight or flight. They raise our blood glucose, which raises our blood insulin. Well, great if you have to run from a saber-toothed tiger, but the long-term effect of elevated blood glucose and elevated insulin, it's diabetes and it's weight gain, to say the least, and it also is harsh on the arteries. So I've gone into significant detail on I Wonder Doctor and all the video series that are on there, and almost any one that you pick up on, whether it's diabetes or overweight or anxiety and depression, they all follow this biological trail. What can you do about it? Well, as I've been mentioning here, it's not the stress. Human life, and certainly in my lifetime, the stress is not going to go away, and there's even reasons for it. It really has to do with how we respond to it, because it's there to be a powerful university, a powerful teacher. And one of the purposes it's trying to teach us is, well, to put it simply, to be calm and at peace during the vicissitudes, the ups and downs of life and what's going on inside of ourself. It's an unconditional acceptance of exactly what's occurring in your moment, in my moment. That's what it's leading us towards, is the ability to allow it to be. I mean, this has such profound repercussions. If it turned out that in your life today, or tomorrow or next year or in the next decade, you got better and better at accepting the ups and downs of everyone in your life. Those up close and personal, those are the most potent and poignant and important people in your life. And then everyone you meet. When you go to the grocery store and you're in the checkout line, whether you're waiting in the post office or you're talking to a colleague at work or you're talking to your spouse or your partner, just imagine if you developed the skills to be fine with wherever they were in their spectrum of moods. So for example, let's say they were really hurting. And maybe they were even disguising that hurt. They were putting up a good front, but everyone on this planet can feel when someone is not feeling good, especially someone they know. What if you developed the skill to accept them if they were upset, accept them if they were angry, accept them if they were feeling hopeless, or if they were feeling afraid or powerless? I mean, how would your world work? It's very common when someone in our immediate reality is upset, and I certainly used to do this so frequently it was not okay, is I would judge them. I'd say, this person, I'd say this in my mind, this person is supposed to be the good person. They're supposed to be the loving person. They're supposed to be the happy person. Well, they're not right now. Well, certainly this couldn't be a friend of mine or a spouse of mine because they're not in a good mood. Anyone that should be up close and personal to me should be perfect and be loving me all the time and giving to me. Well, that's an outrageous example. But I exaggerate it because you're going to be facing some version of this. Let's say they're just a little upset. Well, what would it be if you didn't judge them? If you just accepted them? Well, one thing that would happen, if you didn't judge them, if you didn't react to the mood that they were in, you would not trigger the biology of the stress response. You would not supercharge your whole body and being with adrenaline, with cortisol, with insulin, with glucose. And the long-term effects of that, you will get down on your knees and be thankful to all above and below and beyond that you developed that skill. Because your life just gets easier and easier and easier. It's unconditional acceptance of exactly what's going on in your reality. Well, in order to do that, this skill set can be done by choice. If someone's upset, that's up close and personal, it's not going to be great and effective to judge them, to get angry at them. You ever tried that one? I did for many years of my life. Get upset, judge them. Well, everything gets worse. And so what started out as a minor la-da-da leads to a major kerfuffle and hurt feelings and what? Some people get divorced on this. Some people break up business relationships. Some people dismantle their business because of these upsets. So we know that confrontation very rarely works. Yes, there is a place for it, but not in an everyday thing. So what if you were just accepting? Well, one thing, we treasure freedom. Every human being on this planet loves freedom. Well, how do you get really free? Well, if people are in one of their up moods or down moods and it doesn't affect you, you don't get bent out of shape by it, you just are accepting, you're free. You become free of the moods of other human beings, and you become a safe space for them, and oh my, that makes it so much easier for them and any issue that's in the space to resolve. So this is a day-to-day choice based on you're willing to have a fundamental position, to be present in the moment, experience what's in the moment, and be the accepting space for it. That is called unconditional love. So where have we heard this before, like in the Golden Rule, for example? People have been talking about this, as well as others have been talking about this for a long time. Can you develop that skill? Well, it's a practice, and it requires a lot of forgiveness when you don't do it perfectly. And go back to ground zero if you need to. But where the skill really begins is learning how to accept exactly what's going on in yourself. So, for example, if you feel afraid, if you feel hopeless, If you feel sad, or if you feel anger, or if you feel happy and joyous, well, that's your natural state, happy and joyous. But if you feel any of those, quote, unpopular feelings, the more you learn to allow them to be exactly what they are. What are they? They're energy, they're feelings, they're emotions. They can be intense, yes. But as you develop this muscle and you become the acceptor of exactly what's going on inside of you, that's how you are not going to become intimidated by what's going on inside of them. So the practice is, and you'll have many opportunities today, I will, many opportunities for the rest of your life, that when you're confronted with a situation that's challenging, whatever that is, can you make a choice to, I'm going to be present, I'm going to notice what I'm feeling, and I'm going to accept it. And I'm going to do my best to not react to it. The health consequences are about as profound as anything you do. There's been tremendous focus on nutrition, rightfully so. Tremendous focus on exercise, rightfully so, and on detoxification. But in my experience with patients and with my own self, this is the big one. Get this one, get this skill, and you can practice it right there in your daily life. You don't have to go to seminars, you don't have to go to India to find a guru or whatever. Your daily life is going to deliver you up the exact situation you need to practice staying present, accepting, not reacting. At the core skill of not reacting is allow yourself to feel whatever it is. Now there's another side effect of getting skillful at this one. You get to be in the moment. You don't have to be in the past or the future. Things will be okay if this person changes, or if I move to a new city, or if I'm in a new relationship. You don't have to be locked up in your mind where things don't resolve. The only thing that's valuable is in the moment. You'll gain more and more access to the moment and the truth of the moment. If you can accept all of it, you get access to your internal joy, your basic core sense of the sacred, your connection with the divine. This is peace, love, and joy if you're fully present in the moment. And what will open to you is that then in the very world that you're in, there's beauty galore. There's life. Life is taking place in the moment. The name of my medical practice is Life, Medicine, and Healing. Because if you can join life all the way, which is in the moment, there is nothing more powerful for your healing. Welcome to I Wonder Doctor. I'd now like to take your questions. And again, you can call in at 888-502-8886. And I'm going to start by addressing questions that have been emailed to us. And so I'm sure I'll be able to pull this up. I apologize for a little logistical issue here. Well, I'm going to start with the questions that I remember, because in this very moment, the list of questions that I had, I'm not easily able to access on my screen. Wouldn't you? Don't you just love that? I found them. Here's a question from Julie. I had stage 2A breast cancer in 2016. I'm on tamoxifen, that's an estrogen receptor site blocker, for 8 more years to prevent a recurrence. My diet is really healthy. I don't eat red meat, pork, sweets, and alcohol. I did a whole diet change, but I would like to know what supplements I could take that won't affect my tamoxifen. I had hormone receptor positive cancer. Could I go on bioidentical hormone therapy after my tamoxifen? One thing that I have done, because I definitely have worked with a lot of women in menopause. My goodness, I wrote a book on menopause and hormones. Is I have worked with many women who've had breast cancer, and I have had the initial effective treatments. So I'm a medical doctor. I choose any medicine that is the right one to use in the moment. So I've worked with several women who've had the biopsy, the excision of the lump, the chemotherapy, the radiation. They're through with the therapy. Often they're on tamoxifen. And here's what it comes down to for me. And this is what I recommend to you, Julie, is you want to find, just with respect to the question of hormones, because they're the powerhouse in the room. Blocking estrogen forever is not a terrific strategy, and I'm going to say a little more about that, but it might be, so I'm not disqualifying that. But you want to go to someone who is an absolute expert in treating women in menopause with bioidentical hormones. And we can assist you with that if you go to menopausemethod.com and there's Find a Doc. Someone on our team will lead you to a doc in your area. We've trained so many doctors that we want you to be an expert. And if there's someone in our certified program, they review every case with me. So we'd be able to dive into the details, because that's the issue with me when I work with a woman who's had prior breast cancer, is I want to know all the details. I want to take it down to, can we discover the various things that were the cause of the cancer? Is the patient, and I'm thinking of patients that I'm treating right now, has the patient gone into the issues of nutrition? Sure sounds like you've done that. The issues of toxicity, that's a whole subject and can be related to cancer. The issues of exercise, is that program tuned up? And how you respond to stress. And very often, I mean, I say always, in the story of the development of any illness, there's a story. As I mentioned before, what I like to pretend is I point to my wall and I say to a patient, let's pretend that you had a photographer, a videographer, photographing you, videoing you, from the moment you were conceived to this very moment, 24/7. And they pressed a magic edit button, and it eliminated all the good stuff, all the happiness, all the joy, all the taking care of yourself. What would be left behind is a variety of causes that led to you getting ill. Because why do I want to do that? Because very often there's a key in there. I mean, often with any illness, there's some unworked out, suppressed emotional story that became very evident in the course of your life. In the issue of breast cancer, sometimes a woman gave away her energy excessively. We see that story, or there's been abuse stories in there. And that part of the healing in getting at the causes of the illness is that you've done the work, often with a therapist who knows how to help you go into pains, emotions, thoughts that you're repressing. Because this is often where the action is. So I'm thinking of a patient that I just communicated with this morning who had breast cancer. She's now 8 years out or something. She's been using bioidentical hormones for the last 6. I'm making a guess. If you're out there, you know who I'm talking about, yourself. And one thing she had done prior to actually connecting with me for hormones is she had gone into therapy. She had done the work. She had learned about, she had gone to the resources. I mean, there are so many resources for helping sort out your mind and your emotions. It's amazing. And she got at the pain that was inside of her. So by the time she showed up in my office, from my perspective, she had pretty much dealt with the issues that had caused that breast cancer. She's leading a happy, active life, full businesswoman and an entrepreneur in major action. And I'm here to say that I've seen so many women succeed at healing breast cancer and putting it in their rearview mirror. So it isn't this constant wondering and thought, because they did the work and they're free and clear of it, and they're also on bioidentical hormones. I'm saying this to you because this isn't necessarily the venue I can dive all the way into the details of what's going on for you, but I did want to say there are so many women who have had breast cancer and have been successful. And of course for you, it was caught at an early stage. This is fantastic. Now, I didn't answer your question about supplements, but You could ask that again next week about the supplement part. In general, I want to say every person who has developed a significant illness has got reasons for that illness. And it sounds to me like your commitment has risen to get at the foundation of that as expressed by your devotion to nutrition and go for all of the stuff. The list, how you respond to stress, etc., what events might still be suppressed, pain in your own being, in your mind and in your emotions. And you can do it too, because there are so many women who have put this in their rearview mirror. Thank you for the question. Always, when you send in a question, if you call me at 888-502-8886, very often I can ask you further questions so I get to know more about the details of you and I can help things be more specific for you. Here's a question from Stephen. What about diet and regarding chronic asthma and lung infection? Yes, good question. Because people are starting to learn in general, but it's been known in the functional medicine and the holistic medicine field for 30, 40 years that, of course, we can be allergic to pollens, and that can trigger an asthma attack. But what has been a newer discovery the last 30 or 40 years, and is finally people are getting aware of it, is you can be reacting to the foods that you eat. Oh my goodness, it's very common, and there's very good reasons for it. As we mentioned in the series in I Wonder Doctor, the weekly school that could deliver all these videos up to you, for example, in digestion. Because the biggest exposure to foreign molecules does not come through the allergens in the air. That's small compared to the amount of molecules we eat in the food that we eat. And lo and behold, some of you have heard that people have hives from strawberries. Well, that's very intense. That's a very obvious reaction. Peanut butter, it develops an immediate allergic response. In some people that can be asthma, but it's the subtle stuff. So the first place I want to take you, Stephen, is there anything in your foods that you are reacting to? Well, I want to describe to you the state-of-the-art way for you to discover it. And many people have done this. I mean, I've told this story before, and it's in I Wonder Doctor, that there's a particular physician in Dallas, Dr. Ray. He was given a hospital wing. And what he did is he made that hospital wing so pure, stainless steel, the air is purified, the water's purified. So when a patient came into him, they fly from all over the country and all over the world to go to his clinic, everything is pure. They walk in, they take a shower, their clothes are removed, and they're put on these new purified clothes, hospital garb, and they're in a perfectly pure environment. Well, that's allergen-free, right? And here's the other thing they're put on, is water, only, for a day, 2, 3 days. Why is someone willing to do that? Well, the most common reason was they had asthma that was intractable. It wasn't even responding to the medicines that they were taking. So they were willing to try anything. And when you remove all provocative allergens, and most people have asthma, because the only thing they're on is air and water, and those are highly purified, they start breathing easier, and they get highly motivated, because all you got to do is take someone who's having trouble breathing and is not responding to medicines, and they're starting to be able to breathe again. They'll do anything. And so when their symptoms would calm down, as invariably they would, Dr. Ray would start adding in one food per day. So and he would choose foods that are very rarely provoke any allergy in somebody. So he would choose, let's say for example, the first day, carrots. And the person would eat pureed carrots all day long. Well, that would be somewhat of a relief, because they'd at least be getting some calories in there. And if by the end of the day they didn't have a wheeze, they didn't have their asthma triggered, oh my goodness, that scientific approach to things proves that this person can eat carrots. Next day, they got a new diet called carrots and maybe broccoli. And if at the end of that second day, that's the only thing they ate all day long, no wheeze, well, Dr. Ray would add back a food a day, and he wouldn't add back right away the challenging foods. Like wheat, for example. Whew! A lot of people have challenge with wheat. And eggs and dairy. No, they would come much later. If there was going to be any significant animal protein, he might start with lamb. And if that person ate carrots, broccoli, and lamb all day long, on the third day, for example, and didn't have a wheeze, oh, they're building a diet up from scratch. And then somewhere along the line, let's say they added back in an egg, and they started wheezing. Proof positive that they have got to eliminate eggs for a long time. There are rituals where these things can be added back, but not for a year or two. And you build your diet from scratch. And here's the thing with people with asthma. And if you have asthma, you get so vulnerable to lung infections because you've cut off the circulation, you've cut off the air. You haven't cut it off, but you've cut it down so much. I mean, the key to that highway is often get the asthma to release, and there's a lot of ways to clear up the infections, but as long as those bronchioles are squeezed down and restricting air and leaving these lung pockets that aren't getting enough air and oxygen, and it cuts down on the circulation, you're so vulnerable to infection. So you gotta heal the asthma first. So you've asked a very important question called, could you be reacting to any of the foods? And you could be. And so what you do, it's called the allergy elimination diet. Look it up on the internet. This is described all over the place. That's where I would start, Stephen. There's other things that can relate to asthma. Emotions, of course, can. You probably know that. But you've asked a very important question for those with allergic responses of any kind, especially asthma. Allergy elimination diet. And here's a question from Mark. How much time after the meal does the doc recommend the enzymes be ingested? And thanks for the video, by the way. Well, there's the theory of taking digestive enzymes. Oh, it's a good theory, because let's talk about how nature does it. You eat the food, and that very act of eating activates the enzymes in the saliva, and you're chewing. And let me pause for a minute. Want to help your digestion. Chew, 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 chew. And I mean, theoretically, you should chew until something's liquid. And the slow eaters amongst you, those who really are taking the time and chewing, and everybody's going, well, why do you eat so slowly? No, you are the gold standard. You continue to eat slowly and chew that food. It's the most powerful thing that you can do for your digestion, way superseding the power of hydrochloric acid digestive enzymes, just as an aside. Now, the next thing your body does is that food, when you're ingesting it and when you're chewing it, triggers the outpouring of hydrochloric acid in your stomach. The digestion series in I Wonder Doctor, we have many videos that address this, because that hydrochloric acid is needed for the digestion and assimilation of protein, of minerals, and even vitamin B12. And so that's why that's the first phase. And so your food has fallen into your stomach and is exposed to those strong acids. And then after that's been exposed to that process, the stomach puts that bolus of food out into the upper small intestine, and the pancreas, which is right there, shoots out some sodium bicarbonate to neutralize that acid. And then, once that acid is neutralized, out come the digestive enzymes from the pancreas. The digestive enzymes that continue the digestion of protein, that continue the digestion of carbohydrates, and also of fats. And they need a neutral environment. They don't function well in an acidic environment, and that's why the pancreas shoots out the bicarbonate to neutralize the stomach acid first. So that's how nature does it. You start with the food, you start with hydrochloric acid, and then you put out the enzymes. Well, shouldn't that be the order that you do? In fact, many people can take and should take additional betaine hydrochloride, which is how you get hydrochloric acid, and theoretically you would do that at the start of the meal. And then 20 minutes later into the meal, you would start taking digestive enzymes. That would sort of follow nature. But, whoops, and here's where I'm coming to the challenge. Anyone who has challenged digestion, that would probably be everyone over the age of 40. Yeah. needs to find their own path. Here's what happens. The patients have taught me who have had their total pancreas removed for specific reasons. They'll eat a bite and they'll take a pancreatic enzyme. That can be plant-based, they can be animal-based, and I Wonder Doctor Store we have both varieties. They'll take another couple bites and they'll take another enzyme. They'll take another couple bites and they'll take another enzyme. Well, why do I know that that's effective? Because they had to figure that out. They don't have any pancreatic enzymes, and they start right in the beginning of the meal, and they start taking those enzymes, and they have the full-blown situation, and they've got it right. Well, doesn't that violate? Aren't they just dumping those enzymes into hydrochloric acid in the stomach, and wouldn't that make them not work? And this is where theory gets, there's theory, and then there's how does this actually work? Well, that works for them. They take those pancreatic enzymes throughout the meal. And so, Mark, what it's coming down to is you have to discover your own rhythm for yourself. And how do you know? Well, there's two significant tellers of whether you're digesting foods better, because that's your objective if you're taking enzymes. One is, for the people who have bloating and gas as they're eating their meal, if they're getting those enzymes right, they're improving their digestion, and that bloating and gas and that sense of fullness long after a meal goes away. That's one way to tell. Another way to tell is poopology. So I recommend that everyone have a degree in poopology, which means you get to understand your own poop. And if you're having a normal bowel movement, which should at least be daily, absolutely, and should be voluminous. That means there's some volume to it. It's not small and hard to pass. And it shouldn't be too watery, of course. It shouldn't be too loose. You want to develop the world's ideal poop, which is formed, soft, easy to pass, and voluminous. Now, if someone is not digesting their protein, for example, which is a common thing, and they need digestive enzymes to assist the digestion of protein, that protein acts like a glue to that poop, and those poops are hard and they're tough to pass. And so if you start taking digestive enzymes and your poops get softer and easier to pass, that's another way that you can evaluate whether you're improving your digestion, because it's a subtle thing. And if another thing you can look at, and we have a video on this, is what are the poops doing? Are they sinking to the bottom of the toilet? What would cause that? You're not digesting the minerals. And they could be hard when they're doing that. So there's another poop possibility, that the poop is floating at the top of the water. Well, you're probably not digesting enough fats, which are lighter than water. And so all of these call for enzymes minimal. And so if you're taking enzyme and you're doing it properly and your digestion's improving, those poops will eventually do what they're supposed to do. They're supposed to act like a submarine, about an inch below the surface, floating there. Now, you don't have to get it ideal, but you don't want pure floaters and you don't want pure sinkers. And sometimes when you got pure sinkers, you need to also take betaine hydrochloride. Now, we have specific videos on this on our website. And if this explanation you have found unsatisfactory, like didn't totally clarify it for you, it's hard to clarify it. Each individual has to experiment for themselves. Where I would start that experiment is take a few bites, take some digestive enzyme. Take another bite or two and take another digestive enzymes. And around digestive enzymes, you don't have to ever be concerned about taking too much. You could take 10 with a meal. They're going to be good for you for a lot of reasons. When you get into the world of augmenting hydrochloric acid, you got to be more careful, especially those who've got reflux and burning of the esophagus. So that's a whole other story, and that's I Wonder Doctor. And there I'm much more cautious. So do you take it at the beginning of the meal? Do you take it at the end of the meal? Experiment, Mark. You'll find your way. So many people have. And it's an experiment worth doing. If it takes you 6 months or a year to figure this one out, it's so worth doing, because if you're digesting the food you're eating and you're eating good food, ooh, that is going to serve you so well. If you're eating good food and you're not digesting it properly, you're not getting the nutrients. You're going to have increased hunger. You can gain weight from that. You're going to have a craving for simple carbohydrates. So sorting out one's digestion, as you are obviously doing, Mark, is so good to do. Let us hear from you. Call in. It's a discussion I'd love to have, because I like to learn, what are you doing now? Because often in medicine, it's, what are you doing now? Is there an idea that we can come up with as the next step? Then you try that idea. And if that idea works, then you're home free. But if it doesn't work, then we know the next step. I love to go step by step. It's how you sort out health issues all the time. And here's a question from John. Your stretching is no good. You encourage people to go too short. People will bounce. This is harmful. Well, I think you've probably identified our stretching routine and how Stretching Maestro, who we filmed in our studio, described this particular technique. And what I'm suspecting that you're saying here is that what we describe is that when you stretch, for example, I'm turning my head here, you stretch, you count to 1,000, 2,000, and you return. And you don't hold that stretch for more than 2,000. And that's what I'm thinking, that you're going to create a bounce. You're going to create a contraction if you just go and stretch for too short of time. Well, there's a lot of different opinions. I always like to give you my best shot. Because when I was 30 years old, I moved a boulder just to see if I could do it by putting my back up against it and digging my thighs in and pushing this boulder. I was building something outside. And my God, I could move the boulder. I did it. And simultaneously, something moved in my back. And I had a back injury there that put me in bed, not being able to move. And I'm a doctor, so I knew I used a bedpan because I had to. I was in so much pain. I was living out in the country, and I couldn't move on a bed for 3 days. I injured my low back very significantly. And the first thing that I thought was going to help me, because it just made sense to me, and a friend of mine had left a book on stretching, commonly known as yoga, and I looked at the photos, and I thought, I could do this, and this makes sense to me. And I became a devotee of yoga. And over the course of the next decades, I became a devoted stretcher. Oh my God, there's so much benefit in stretching. It's one of the big physical things. When I go to the YMCA, I do 3 things. I stretch, I strengthen my muscles, and I do cardiovascular. Stretching is one of the pillars of appropriate exercise. But I never could get it right. It didn't matter how stretched out I could be. It didn't matter how religious I was with doing the stretching. And periodically, my back would go into spasm for one reason or another. A lot of times, I couldn't even tell you how in the heck that happened to me. But it did happen. And then, about 3 years ago, my beloved Kim discovered this gentleman in his 70s that you see on our videos. His name is Aaron Mattis. When you look at Aaron, you've got to realize that this gentleman has treated probably the most famous people you could ever know, including over 1,000 Olympic athletes. Some of the economic leaders, the political leaders on this planet have flown in. The royalty have flown in to be treated by Aaron Mattis. And I mean, in my experience, this is stretching at its best. And the main thing is, for me, I went to Aaron, he taught me how to stretch, he stretched me. Oh my God, so much further than I ever thought I could be stretched. And then 3 times a week, I do Aaron's specific routine, and that's what we have on our videos. And one of the things that Aaron said that was a little shocking is that you never want to hold a stretch more than the count of 2. Because if you do, you recruit the opposite muscles by the proprioceptive, I'm going to use that term, reflex, that attempts to stabilize the body, and you put the opposite muscles in contraction. You don't want to contract. You don't want to do that. And so Aaron's approach is, any stretch that you do, hold for 2 seconds, and then let go. Now, this is a theory. I can tell you how it worked out for me. I can play racquetball 3 times a week with my 47-year-old son, and I'm not 47. Do the math. Whereas I could not before, because every third racquetball game I would go into back stuff, and that would take me out for a couple of weeks. And so I know this personally, and so do a lot of folks that have been, thousands of people who have been treated by Aaron Mattis. So I'm giving you a possibility. Do I think stretching, as it's done by so many different schools, is wonderful? Absolutely I do. I think everyone needs to have stretching in their routine. But this is a radical departure from how most people are taught to stretch. And I'm telling you, I'm going with Aaron. And the 2 second, don't hold any stretch for longer than 2 seconds. I'm going with that. And hey, listen, John, you may find something that works for you, but I want to tell you something that I discovered that has changed my life. So you'll try out what's best for you. It's a common principle in healing your physical body. Is there's all kinds of ideas out there. I mean, you look up any subject, look up nutrition, look up exercise, look up stretching, look up detoxification, look up emotional and stress healing. There are 1,000 different opinions, and they are diametrically opposed in many cases. Like the very first heavily technical, qualified book I read on nutrition was by a PhD in nutrition, Paolo Airola. This was in 1970s, early 1970s. I actually went to a lecture of Dr. Airola's. He traveled around the world. He wrote a book called Are You Confused? It was about nutrition. He said, are you confused about nutrition? Because there are so many different opinions. And they're all right. They're all right for somebody. So the art with each individual, and you can do this, you get committed to healing, you're going to pull it off. So many people do. And what commitment is, you're willing to do what it takes to get the job done. And the thing is, you have to find your way in to what works for you. So here's 2 different theories of stretching. You're saying 2 seconds is too short, you're going to bounce. And I'm saying 2 seconds is the greatest thing that ever happened to my physical body. One of them. But you'll explore what's right for you. So I love it because it brings up that basic principle is lots of theories, you discover what's right for you. Thanks for asking the question, John. If you have more, please call and we can even have a discussion. Well, this is our time for today as far as answering questions with respect to the physical body. And at 2 o'clock Eastern Standard Time every week, we're going to open up the space for those who have questions about their emotions and their mind and their life and how to improve that, how they respond to stress. So, welcome again to I Wonder Doctor. I'm Dr. Rosensweet, and we're live every Monday at 1 o'clock and again at 2 o'clock. Good to be with you.